Hello and welcome to our latest Dragon Plus live stream, where we have a chance to talk more of the content surrounding Dragon Plus, our free online magazine. Issue 18 is available now on iOS, on Android, and online at dragonmag.com. With me today, we have two very esteemed guests. To my immediate right, Sam Weigelt, who is a fellow Wizards of the Coast, I guess, wizard.
Thanks.
I don't know if we have, yeah.
Yeah, I think official title on our business cards is just wizard.
It wouldn't be Coastian, it would be wizard.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
But thank you for the welcome.
And Skyping in remotely, we have the one and only Holly Conrad.
Hooray! I was just looking at myself in the stream and I was like, oh god, I have a cold, so like my eyes all messed up. And I was like, oh no. So this is what you get. Hey everyone.
It's fine. It's all well and good. Yeah, we were just talking before we started that there's a slight delay between what we're seeing live and then when we're looking at it on the actual Twitch feed. So it's a very sort of disconcerting horror movie style. The guy in the mirror is slightly off and trying to trick us.
Yeah, askew, if you will.
Yes. So today, what we wanted to talk about was a little bit about world building, a little bit about campaign building, in no small part because Holly is dungeon mastering one of our newest and latest and greatest live streams, Trapped in the Birdcage.
Yes.
So, Holly, if you wouldn't mind, before we jump into I guess, a little bit about world and campaign building in general, can you tell us a little bit about Trapped in the Birdcage?
Yeah, so this is a homebrew adventure of mine, and it's a Planescape themed, so second edition Planescape themed. I mean, that's the only resources adventure. And it's super fun, and it has 4 of my good friends playing in it. And it's my first time DMing on stream. It's not my first time DMing in real life. I've DM'd a few, not like a ton of times, but a few times in actual non-streamed life. So, but it is my first time on stream, so it's super nerve-wracking.
Is it? How it looks like it's going well, though. I mean, and last week you had to pivot really quickly from the normal studio to you were on the road and still found time and opportunity to do the stream.
Exactly. Well, I have so many kind streamer friends. My friend Blue Jay was like, "Hey, you can come stream at my place. I have it all set up." And I was like, "Great." So I just trucked around all of my books like a hobo and just brought them to her place and just set up shop. So I can stream anywhere, anytime. I just kind of look homeless.
Well, so Trapped in the Birdcage, you will be continuing to stream that on Thursdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific right here on the D&D Twitch channel. So
it's right before Critical Role, so the show that you're actually going to watch, you can just leave mine on before it starts. And it's been great because my players are so funny. I'm thinking of changing the name to Always Sunny and Sigil because they're just terrible people, and it's awesome.
Oh, that sounds great.
I was going to say, we're joined by somebody from the Philadelphia area, right?
That's
nice.
True.
Yeah. So Sam's got some direct knowledge of it, so it is not always sunny in Philadelphia.
No, in fact, right now it's apparently they're under several inches of snow.
Oh yeah.
But I will say that the show to which we're referencing is super accurate, uncomfortably accurate at times to things that you see around Philadelphia.
That's amazing. It's also uncomfortably accurate to things that happen in D&D. I watched episodes. I was trying to get inspiration the other night. It was the gang finds a dumpster baby, and I was like, you know what? I could use this. I could use this in the game.
So Philadelphia's getting hit with the nor'easter right now. Is that right?
That's what I hear. Yeah, from I have a crew that I play with on the East Coast, and they're all snowed in right now.
Why is it a nor'easter, not a northeaster?
But laziness? I don't know.
It's a cool fantasy. You got to put in that little asterisk in there. So, in any case, Trapped in the Birdcage, Thursdays, 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific. We've got Jimmy Wetzel, Anna Prosser Robinson, of course, Hadil Al-Masari, and Chad Quant.
Yep.
How did I do on that pronunciation?
You did great. You did great. It's all perfect.
One of the I mean, we had talked for weeks, kind of in the lead up to Trapped in the Birdcage, about it being set in Sigil and Planescape, and how we were going to work that into the D&D Twitch channel. As you mentioned, we haven't really touched that setting for a while now. So why, for folks who may not be aware, although I'd be potentially surprised, why Planescape? Why Sigil?
Yeah, so I've always been a huge fan of Planescape growing up. I loved Dieter Lizzy's art. That was, like, honestly one of the things that drew me to Planescape originally. That, and I had a crush on the tiefling from the Neverwinter Nights expansion, Hordes of the Underdark. And so I loved tieflings growing up. And also I loved all the tieflings in Baldur's Gate. And I played a lot of the PC games. And so the Planar Sphere and all those quests that had to do with going to the Hells and things like that, I was totally into. So of course I found the resources for all of those things and ended up finding all the books and getting the box sets and just reading them and loving the art and just loving the whole setting. I just really fell in love with the setting.
And of course, your character Strix is now said tiefling from the various planar worlds.
Yes, yeah. Strix is technically she's from Sigil, but she's also from Barovia, which again, I actually didn't, when I was younger, I didn't know about Ravenloft, but now that I do, I'm just like, oh, I love Ravenloft too. It was because I was introduced to D&D through the RPG games like Baldur's Gate. So that was my introduction. So that was Forgotten Realms was my first introduction to that, and then that's how I found Planescape. But yeah, Strix doesn't like Sigil very much. She kind of hates it. I love it, but she hates it.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't point out a few of our connections to Dragon Plus with our guests today. For folks who might be interested in taking a look at Strix's character sheet, we actually released a recent version in issue 17, our holiday gift guide, back in December. So we used D&D Beyond as the tool set to help create this Strix character sheet. This is as official as we could possibly make it. Holly, I believe we might have run this by you. Hopefully we ran it by you.
I don't know. It's maybe. I don't think you did, but I think I sent it in. I think it was okay, unless I made a mistake.
No, I don't believe that we came up with the treasure items that include a varnished basilisk's eye, 3 desiccated goblin fingers, and some even more disturbing things.
Yeah.
Did Strix varnish that basilisk's eye herself, or did it come pre-varnished?
So that list of items was given to me by Chris when Strix spent 50 years in Barovia alone. So I made every single one of those items for my costume, which I wore on the Acquisitions Inc. stage. So every single one of those items actually exists, and I varnished the eye myself. So
very meta, not Strix, but it was Holly.
Very meta. Exactly.
All right. Yes. So, and for Sam, we wanted to invite you on because you last wrote an article for issue 15, our board game issue. We did behind the screens, and behind the screens when you were talking about party size matters.
Oh yeah. I'm now vaguely, I remember that. I've been DMing a group here in Seattle where we've got a cast of, I think we have 13 or 14 people playing. And we actually, I've since wrapped up that campaign, but it lasted about a year with a pretty huge party that led to some interesting kind of problems.
Were you playing 13 plus people simultaneously, concurrently? Were you breaking it up into different groups along the way?
Always concurrently, and I mean with 13 or 14, adults with jobs and things to do and kids and stuff. Obviously, not everyone can show up all the time. So one of the big problems to solve is always having a session, even when there were sometimes 4 or 5 people missing.
Sure.
Which it's tough, and so doing things like having it be episodic rather than a campaign arc helps a lot with that kind of thing. And yeah, I guess got some more tips in Dragon Plus around that.
Yeah, there you go. You can check it out in issue 15. You lose 4 or 5 people a session, you still have a big session compared to...
Yeah, it's still a full party. You know, unless all the clerics bail, everyone's fine.
And I believe we haven't hounded you for deadlines in recent days, but you're going to be contributing another... Maybe you don't know this. You're going to be contributing another behind the screens article in the coming weeks.
I did hear that.
Oh, good.
I think for the April issue, going to be talking a little bit about world building and the lazy approach that I took to it.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about world building and campaign building, and kind of going back to where's my papers? Going back to Planescape and Sigil. So Holly, I was kind of curious how you set about introducing a campaign setting that's pretty far afield from, right now in our printed products, where it's Tomb of Annihilation and we're in Chult and you're traversing through the jungle and exploring ruins. Whereas, Planescape and Sigil, we're way left field from that. So how did you set about introducing a wildly different campaign to the players, and what sort of prep work did you need to do? Did you feel they may needed to have done?
Yeah,
if any?
I kind of set it up in the sense that I introduced them pretty slowly into what they're getting into. Mm-hmm. So that's mostly so they don't just walk into the streets and just kill a Dabus and then just get mazed. So I introduced them slowly. I kind of, I introduced them to this weird character called Crone, who's a half-formed were-raven who's too old to shift back into her human and raven form. And so she owns a tea shop. And so she was kind of their guide when she first got there, to guide them into this world and be like, this is why you're here. Don't do that. And they've had various touts, which is what they're called in the Planescape world, to take them around Sigil. And in the next episode, spoiler alert, they're actually going to be meeting another character who is going to kind of help them along. So I've had guests and NPCs planned to sort of ease them into this. And there's also a lot of ties in, obviously, to the Forgotten Realms and a lot of the other D&D worlds in Planescape. So it's easy to see, okay, they're, even in Dice Camera Action, we're dealing with Shemeshka, who's, an Arcanoloth, but there's also Arcanoloths in Curse of Strahd. And there's, it is actually mentioned in Tomb of Annihilation, too, I'm pretty sure. So it's there's these ties together with Planescape, but the best way that I can do it is just ease them into it and just kind of show. I didn't even let them outside in the first episode. I didn't even let them walk out the door. I was like, nope, you're not going out the door. No. So and I also gave them a special item, which I feel helps a lot. It's a mirror shard that they can use almost as an alternate reality device and look through it. And so that can help them with quests and help them understand things, and they can do Arcana checks to see if it's showing them clues as to what they're looking at.
All right, so right there, a couple of potential tips and tools for Dungeon Masters. If you're introducing a new campaign setting, you've got the in-world guides that would be able to give the lay of the land. You've got magic items that you could potentially contribute to the party's cause to help them out of a stretch. Planescape and Sigil, those are, it's an exceptionally challenging setting because, it even has its own vocabulary that's a little unique to other campaign settings, to the Forgotten Realms and so on. So did they go into it with some homework, knowing here are the phrases, or again, do they kind of get immersed as they're going through the game itself?
Yeah, no, they know nothing. They're totally clueless. And that's part of the Planescape lore, too, is that you can introduce a party as being clueless, as having no idea where they are. And the problems that have arisen from their...
Well, it's an exciting campaign.
Yeah, from them being clueless have been hilarious. So it's kind of it's been funny, and that's sort of what their party is. But if you want to bring a party into the Planescape setting, you can easily link them resources to have the planar can't, and you don't have to remember all the planar can't. Even as a DM, like I don't use it all the time because that would just sound like complete, like it would be more confusing than it's worth. So I try to throw words in there once in a while to just give the flavor of it being like you're in a different set, like different place, but not like totally confuse them.
No, I mean, even the name of the live stream, I think we reached into some of the phraseology to get trapped in the birdcage as one of the pieces that we pulled out of there. And I love that it connects back to the Raven guide as well, in a way. So goes full circle there. So yeah, we're showing a couple of images on screen right now. I don't know if you can see them, but we pulled off obviously some Trapped in the Birdcage images. We wanted to showcase some of the awesome logos that you helped create and support the show.
Yeah, this is all Kayla. So at Kayla Klein, she did amazing art, and I loved it because her art is so much like Dietra Lizzie's art. That's why I found her and was like, okay, this is perfect. You're gonna do such a good job, and it's that feeling of those like hand illustrated books is what I really, really wanted.
Well, they look great, and yeah, we're excited to have them up and ready. You know, we kind of it makes me think we put them as logos, very small logos on our Twitch calendar image. It gets cut down often a lot of times. We need to make like a wallpaper-sized version of these that we can be able to present for folks to download as well. So I'll add that to my.
They're so good. They're just like they're amazing, and I want to, as the game goes on, commission more art too of NPCs and things. So there'll hopefully be some more art from her coming up.
Absolutely. You know, that's one of the things that we're interested in doing with Dice Camera Action as well. Coming up at 4 p.m. Pacific time today as well, is the viewers and fans do an awesome job of creating and contributing their own fan art to the stream. And we're looking at ways to help further, to actually showcase some of that fan art as we go along. So it's awesome that people are creating it. We just want to make sure that we're showing it out as well. So
yeah, I retweet it all the time, and I'm just like, I don't care if anyone's tired of this. I'm gonna keep doing it.
So in any case, so Sam, now I'm turning to you. The next article you're going to be working on is world building and campaign building. This is the lazy, the yeoman's way of doing that?
Yeah.
So without spoiling too much, what sort of thoughts going into it are you looking at exploring?
So this is for a campaign that I'm running with a subset of the group that I was with before. Essentially the people who showed up the most. We're now like doing another campaign. And I'm really lucky that these are all very creative players. They're always taking furious notes and things, reminding me of the details of the characters that I created and things like that. And so I wanted to do something to get them really invested in the campaign. And so what we did was we did a shared world building exercise. And this is something that I actually did first with Chris Tulloch here in the building. He's the one who kind of created this method, and I didn't remember it entirely when I did it with my players, but I think I recreated it pretty well, and I had some advice from the D&D discussion group here in the building on how to structure it. And essentially, it's a mixture of telestrations and Dungeons and Dragons in order to create people, places, and even mini adventures through it.
So are you having the players, you're giving them a topic and having them draw out?
Essentially, yeah. We didn't do, we skipped the illustration part of the telestrations, and essentially it was almost like a whisper down the lane. Yeah. To create these various people. And so I've got these NPCs that were created by committee by these players, and they're each handing them down. And it's created some truly fascinating NPCs for this campaign. And along with this is this idea that each player knows different things about the characters. Yeah. Because as they were kind of handed these note cards with partially filled out characters, their character knows that much about the person. Ah. And the piece of advice I got from the D&D discussion group here was to go from kind of general and outward motivations towards inward ones. And so the people who know these NPCs better have a real insight into why they are the way they are.
So I haven't heard about this. I also haven't heard the game Telephone ever called Whispers Down the Lane either.
Oh,
So is that a Philly thing or a?
That's an England thing.
England thing.
At the lunch table, Whisper Down the Lane. Yeah, I guess you guys call it telephone here.
Yes.
So I probably don't need to explain what it is.
Well, no, I'd never heard it called that before. It's awesome. So you'd start with a note card. We're going to make an NPC. We're going to play a game of Whispers Down the Lane, which is probably more D&D anyways. And so each person is going to write a little detail about the NPC and pass it on.
Yeah.
But they don't all see the finished card. So once it goes by you, you've only seen what's been created for that NPC to that point.
Exactly.
Ah.
And it winds up with whatever card you end up with as a player. That's your closest friend NPC, or your closest adversary NPC, or it's a miniature adventure that you took, or a place that you know particularly well.
I like that. I'm going to steal that. As all good DM tools, I'm going to.
I already stole it from Chris Kulak. He'll be co-writing the article with me for Dragon Plus.
All right. Well, very cool.
Yeah.
So let's say that I'm setting up my new campaign setting. I'm a dungeon master. I want to go beyond, say, I've gone through the Tomb of Annihilation, and I want to do something an original campaign setting. If you both were going to give me advice as a dungeon master who's maybe never done a campaign setting on my own, what might you suggest as far as lessons you've learned or successes or failures along the way of trying something a little bit beyond, say the printed products?
Do you want to go first, Holly?
Sure. Yeah, like I like to take, like when I'm thinking about even just like homebrew stuff, like in a D&D world that already exists, but I'm still making up the story and NPCs and things like that. So I like to take a lot from history. I have a lot of like useless history knowledge, and I feel like there's so much weird stuff in history that you can literally just like watch a History Channel documentary and be like, oh, that's weird. That's a good idea. Maybe I'll use that. Or like mythology, like Crone in my Trapped in the Birdcage game has two other counterparts, Maiden and Mother, which are all part of the Morrigan, which is a Celtic like warrior goddess. And so I like to put in these weird little like historical bits that are in there, and use mythology, use real history. If you don't have your own pre-made world, like don't be afraid to go into mythology and even change the names and use the stories.
It's funny you mentioned the Morrigan. I had this question on Twitter a couple of months ago. I was trying to find a good resource for that very thing, for Celtic and Irish folklore and mythology. There's oodles and oodles, obviously, for Greek mythology.
Right. I've got some good ones if you need them.
I would love the names of those.
All right. Yeah. I make sure they have good bibliographies too, and they're not just like New Age books, which are great, but like I need to make sure that there's not that many resources, like primary sources, I mean, for that kind of stuff.
That was my challenge. They're great stories. There's great figures. The Morrigan is a great figure, but I don't have a ready-made source that I could reference to find out all about it beyond, say, Wikipedia.
Totally, I'll give you mine. I have one really good researched book, and that's it. There, I mean, of course, other than primary sources like the Toyn and like all those, but yeah.
Well, this has been the best Dragon Plus live stream already, then, because now I've got access to that.
There you go.
Sam, any advice if I'm setting up a new campaign setting or even just a campaign?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is to make sure that whatever you're about to write is something that you're going to have fun with. As Holly said, take inspiration from history. Take inspiration from movies. You know, remix your favorite moments that you've seen in other stories, and make them your own and make them as fun as you can for yourself. Because at the end of the day, your energy going into it is going to translate to your players having fun. So my advice is always just do whatever's the most fun for you. Even if you need to bend some rules, break some rules, or rework how a famous city in the Forgotten Realms functions. Yeah, like I wanted to do a procedural cop drama with a SWAT team in D&D, and so I cast the players as the Grey Hands, and I made them into just a SWAT team for Waterdeep. And I had a blast writing it, and they ended up having fun doing it, even though it was not necessarily lore accurate.
Well,
right. Well, yeah.
I was going to ask, Holly, are there along that line, are there particular media inspirations that strike your fancy these days with books or movies or shows or things beyond? You had mentioned history and folklore. If there was other elements that are in your zeitgeist that might get pulled into the campaign.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Definitely any kind of like ridiculous humor. Like I love movies like Galaxy Quest. Like I love humor in games, and like I try to add a lot of things like that. So I've made a chart of like 100 items because they also all love this. They all love to steal. So that's another thing I've used to like homebrew is like I know that they're all thieves, and so I've literally made a chart with 100 different items of things from like our world and like pop culture references and just like random nonsense that they can find. In fact, the last time I played, they got a Onyx Panther figurine.
Hey, wait a minute. I think I know where that comes from.
So like, and like, I've been just like sneaking in little things like that. And like, honestly, like because the characters are just like such bad people. I've been watching Always Sunny. Like, I'm just like, I'm going to get some ideas for them for this game. And like, where can I escalate this into like the point where it gets ridiculous? And like, I feel like another movie I watched recently, Thor Ragnarok. I was like, this is like Thor Ragnarok. That's what Planescape is. It's like Thor Ragnarok to me. I'm like, yeah, it's nonsense. And like Jeff Goldblum shows up and you're just like, what? So it's just, I think that's a good inspiration is kind of to mix I love a lot of humor in my games. And I try to be scary from what I've learned from being in Chris's game, but I'll never be as good at it as he is. But I try.
So I'm hearing theft of actual culture as a dungeon master and theft by the players themselves, all things to keep in mind for
Exactly.
campaigns.
And add that my thing is always add that humor in there, because if you can't laugh at yourself, then that's the worst thing.
No, I was following the chat in the last Trapped in the Birdcage, and yeah, the Always Sunny references were starting to emerge as far as what's taking place with that particular group.
Right, yeah, exactly. And once I realized that, I was like, research time, because I'm like a history major, so I'm like, time to research. So I've been watching the show, so I'm like, good, perfect.
I just like the idea of you watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and like taking notes.
Yeah.
And this will be applicable in the D&D campaign that I'm running later on. So
yeah, because it's like okay, I see where this is going. So let's see what like ridiculous, awful nonsense can happen. Like, what if they did find you find a dead imp in the dumpster? Like, what do you do with it? Like, there's inspiration everywhere, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, the Charlie character, I feel, would have the imp bat.
Oh,
I think he's got
just wait. Just wait. Next week, we have a guest coming in who has been in Dice Camera Action before and played a very similar character. And I'm not going to spoil it, but they are very excited to play this character, which I totally did not intend to be Frank, but is 100% Frank.
Oh.
So it's going to be great.
I didn't want to put you on the spot and ask if you had a Frank, and now I'm so glad you do.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Yeah, boy. I lost my train of thought for that reference.
It's just so funny.
But that's. I was going to ask for running campaigns, whether you're modifying an existing campaign, whether you're creating something out of whole cloth. What, if any, sort of tools are you using to keep track of these things? Do you have binders filled with campaign notes? Do you keep things online? Do you just like to wing it, or you know, any combination thereof?
Yeah, I do have. I mean, I have a lot of torn up pieces of paper, which is fun. I don't know where all my stuff went. I was going to show you guys, but I have a big binder that I keep that has different files in it.
Yeah.
And each file, one side has grid paper for maps, and then I have blank paper for like drawings of anything, and then I have lined paper for like lists and things like that. So I keep everything in a folder, and I just kind of like a school folder. So like if I need to look back on like the one sheet for each episode, because Chris said he'd only do one sheet for each setting. So I'm trying to take his advice, and so I'll have like the NPCs showing up and whatever else. And then if they go totally off the rails, then I just bust out my DM's guide or the Sigil books or something like that. And thankfully, like, I know so much about Sigil. Like, I'm really comfortable with the setting. And if I wasn't, I would be way more nervous because they've already gone off the rails like 10 times. So, like, if you're starting DMing, just know they're going to go off the rails and don't be afraid to just kind of wing it. And I'm not going to be 100% accurate to the map of Sigil. It's massive. But if you know the flavor and the feeling of where you're at, you can make that happen. Like, you can make that still like an okay, like, make it still not lose the immersion, I mean.
And Sigil, you've got opportunity there with the doorways to all sorts of different planar. You know, it's sort of a nexus, right? It's a great crossroads for different planar experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned humor in the games. Is there any real world, Earth world elements that find their way into your version of Sigil, or might find their way into Sigil?
Oh yeah, there is.
Assuming there's doorways everywhere. Is one of those doorways here?
No, there's so last episode they have, I'm sorry, it's so funny. They have this mirror shard, right, that's showing them different things. And it's augmented reality. I'm sorry. It can do augmented reality, and it can also show them visions. It's pretty much a broken shard of a scrying mirror. And at one point I was like, you see, this is going to keep happening too, so hopefully everyone knows. I'm like, you see a yellow bell, and inside people are exchanging green paper for wrapped up delicacies. And it's going on, and I'm like, they're in uniforms, you don't really know why, and like they didn't get it. I was like, oh my god. Like I was this close to being like, on the wall it says live moss. So the shard is going to keep showing them just different fast food places in our world throughout the campaign. We'll just see how long it takes for them to catch on.
So there's a challenge as the DM. You have to describe it in game terms and see when the players actually figure out where they are.
Exactly, yeah, and I that was inspired by Chris too when he did the Acquisitions Inc. game where they went to Wizards of the Coast. I was like, oh, that's so good. I just want to throw in these like weird little things where for some reason this mirror shard shows them Taco Bell.
I wanted to do that one day, and I don't know that we'd be allowed to, but take the floor map, the floor plan to Wizards of the Coast.
Oh, and make it like some fortress or something?
Recreate it as a D&D map. But, I don't know if security reasons would allow it, but in some regards.
Oh, I'm sure we could do that.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, Chris, you had mentioned the one sheet. Is this Chris Perkins advocating for keeping the episode session contained to one sheet of paper?
Yeah, I feel he said that. He said don't over prepare, and he said try and fit everything for the episode or the session on one page. And I think I totally get that, because like it leaves you open for creativity. Like, it leaves you open for if they do something, it keeps you from railroading them, which, like, I feel like I would be tempted to do, being that I'm not that experienced of a DM. I always want to be like, this way. But it's been a lot better since I've allowed myself to be more creative with it, and I've really been enjoying it a lot more.
If there's one thing players are good at, it's jumping the train off of the rails. So.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And these ones in particular are very, very, very off the rails, which I think is hilarious. So,
So I guess, Sam, I'd ask you the same question. Are there tools at your disposal that you tend to use for campaign, either generating, building, or tracking along the way?
Yeah, there are. I mean, with the campaign I'm now running, I've got all these 3x5 cards that my players have created. Can I promote like a product that's not one of ours and not even like RPG related?
Yes.
So I straight up use Scrivener, the writing program.
Yeah,
I've used that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it gives you like, oh, places, oh, characters, and it's like every level of organization I could want for a campaign, and they're all there, and then you double click on them, and it like blows it out into, you know, how much you want. You can relate stuff to each other. It's I don't know why they're not marketing it as a campaign resource, because it's fantastic.
I use Scrivener for fiction writing.
Yeah, me too. I didn't even think about using it for D&D. I use it for fiction writing too, and I was like, wait, no, you're right. You can like open up all the little like corkboard thing and everything.
Yeah.
So this episode of Dragon Plus brought to you by... Well, I was going to say, I mean, Mike Merles is on Microsoft Word for Happy Fun Hour the hour before, so I guess that's also a tacit promotion of the Office suite of products, so a quick mention of Scrivener probably is okay.
But this, using one sheet, that is such good advice. Like, keeping yourself limited like that, because it is tempting to railroad your characters like more than they're comfortable with the more you prepare. Because suddenly, you know, those 5 pages that you wrote up of amazing characters that are going to come up as long as they follow this exact track, you know, you feel like is wasted work somehow. And so like you've got this pressure on you to make them follow that. But if you have one sheet and you're painting those broad strokes, that is, yeah, wow, that's such great advice.
Well, one sheet, it just depends how small you write on the one sheet.
That's true.
Yeah, like that advice helped me a ton with doing in the Birdcage, because like I would have an NPC I wanted them to meet, and maybe they weren't, like it's like 1 hour in and they haven't ended up meeting that NPC yet. So I used like pretty much in the last episode, I used this NPC's pet to distract them, because I knew they would want the pet because they'd want to take it because they're thieves. So they ended up following the pet to the NPC, and I was like, okay, great, it worked great, cool. But I didn't know where they were going to meet this NPC. I just knew they were going to.
I hope the NPC wasn't like a small child, and this is like their beloved pet puppy. Or...
But that's a good idea for next episode. The gang finds a small child.
So this kind of on the line of jumping the rails and all of it. So this was a question I had for my Dungeon. I'm in a game with Nathan Stewart, and he's running, I think it's the Adamantine Chef right out of the DM's Guild. And the way that our group interacts, I know we're not progressing through the adventure because we're stepping on each other's actions, we're trying to steal this and that from each other, and we're having a ball. We're having a ball each session, but it's not advancing the story. So from the Dungeon Master, and this was the question I posed to him, and from the Dungeon Master's perspective, are you okay with your players having their own escapades, but it doesn't advance the story? Does that frustrate you as the Dungeon Master when the story doesn't get advanced and you find ways to steer it back? Or you know, what's your feelings on the players not following the story, still role-playing?
To me, like anytime the players are having fun, I'm having fun, and that's like great. Like I had an entire session just like going to a halt at like a closed door once because the players argued for like 45 minutes over whether they should go through and how they should get through this door, and the door was specifically closed. It wasn't locked, and there was no trap on it or anything like that, but they were afraid of what was on the other side.
Yeah.
But they were just arguing amongst themselves and smiling and laughing.
I was going to ask, were they enjoying the argument, or because there are times when there's inter-party conflict and it's not advancing things?
And I think that's really the key delineator. If you see something going on and people aren't having a good time, then it's time to steer people back towards, you know, something that you have planned, something that's fun. But if people are having a good time, I always just like let it ride and feed into it. I guess there are those situations where things go totally off the rails and they're going to a different place entirely, where it can be difficult. Like, oh, how am I possibly going to have them fight this evil wizard if they're in a different country? But that kind of thing, it can even itself out in the end. Everything comes out in the wash.
Holly.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it was. I guess that was the same sentiment we had. As long as we're having fun, that's ultimately the goal of it. I did want to. I will throw out compliments to Dungeon Masters worldwide, because it is that constant challenge that players are going to take things 90 degrees from not only what you've planned, but what you expect them to do. And so you've got to think on your feet. And Holly, you're doing this live on the live stream,
right?
So it's
and I think too, like, I've been really open to like constructive criticism too, and like people telling me things, because it's like I ask my players, like, make sure it was fun. I want to make sure that everyone is having fun, and everyone's still having fun. But it's just it's hard when it's live. It's definitely harder than when I do it at home.
I said right before this episode, this is my most terrifying hour of the week. It's also one of my most pleasurable hours of the week, because I get to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I get to to have the community involved with it as well. But yeah, you're live and everyone's watching, and so for the Dungeon Master, who's even from I usually play with 3 players when I'm the Dungeon Master. You're sort of that social maven trying to make sure everyone has a good time. I can't imagine doing it for 13 players at once. I can't imagine doing it for 2,000 concurrent viewers at once. So my tip of the cap to both of you guys.
I guess I have a question for Holly. Like, with the transition to DMing live, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking about doing that? What challenges have you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think, again, one of the challenges is knowing the setting really well, and thankfully I do know the setting, so I can come up with fun things like on the fly. But I think it's also just like embracing chaos, honestly. Like, you just have to embrace the fact that you are out of control, and there is no way for you to fix this. And so you just have to let it happen, and just and I think being in Chris's game for so long, I've learned so much from him, and he's such an amazing DM that I've tried to absorb as much as I can about doing a live session. I noticed that that he also separates like encounters, so you need to like as soon as the time hits a certain mark, like usually something will happen in our game, and I've noticed him doing that, so I kind of do that in mine. And for the players, you want them to not pay attention to the time, which 90% of the time, if they're having a good time, they're not. But it's like, if you can, but I'm paying attention because I'm like, I want to know how you do this. So I've noticed that there's a way to kind of make sure that something exciting happens at certain moments. And I've kind of stolen that from him, because it's like I always try to do a cliffhanger at the end, because no matter what it is, even if I have to make it up, I can deal with that later. It's the end. So it doesn't matter. Even if I just throw it out there, it's like, well, I can write that story later and see how it happens. So it works out if you just kind of just embrace chaos, I guess.
I was going to mention, and speaking of Chris again, I know in his past website column that he was writing back and forth edition. He was writing a column about the Ayamandra campaign, and he pulls a lot of story structure from episodic TV content.
Right. Yes.
From Lost, from wherever else, and the cliffhanger, and it kind of holds true, I think, for Dungeon Masters, through and through. Is that's not a bad model, just to see how episodic TV. Or I guess serial TV, right? Because you're trying to get that continuing story going, and finding those periodic cliffhanger moments kind of keeps things enticing to come back for next week.
Exactly, yeah. And I've also all the shows that Chris has said he likes, I'm just I've gone back and watched them just to be like, okay, this is a good story idea. So it's I don't know, again, it's research. I feel like it's do research that you enjoy, but also be willing to embrace chaos And if you look up to someone who's a DM, and of course, like there's so many live shows to watch. There's so many amazing DMs. Just learn from them and watch what they do, because they're honestly probably just as terrified as you are.
Well, and including our Dungeon Master, Holly Conrad, for Trapped in the Birdcage. I'll make another appeal for viewers to tune in again on Thursdays, 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific for that. But as far as research goes, it's also nice that it includes watching shows, watching movies, reading books that are probably of interest to you regardless.
Right, exactly.
So to your point, kind of distilling it down to some of its component elements that you enjoy and then reassembling them or representing them or just your own take on them is not a bad way to inject those into your D&D campaign as desired.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to take the advice of embrace chaos and watch It's Always Sunny to heart.
Yeah.
Before we go, before we get to our final questions, and if there are any questions, we'll try and pull those up in chat as well. I've been, remiss to the folks watching to see if there's any questions for Sam and or Holly as well. I did want to make a couple of quick announcements. As far as streaming news goes, Girls Guts Glory will be returning this Sunday, March 11th. They will be back at their usual date and time, Sundays 3 to 5:30 p.m. Pacific, starting May. This Sunday, March 11th. In addition, Maze Arcana, Inkwell, this is going to be Rudy Rutenberg. They will be coming March 14th, so that's this upcoming Wednesday, not tomorrow, but next Wednesday. They'll be coming back in the evening, 7 to 10 p.m. Pacific. And then Maze Arcana Sirens of the Realms will be returning a couple weeks later on March 27th on Tuesdays. Their usual date and time, Tuesdays, 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific. Inkwell, we moved them a little hour later. We worked with Rudy to try and get that coordinated so that we weren't stepping on Acquisitions Inc. The C team is streaming on that side of things as well. In addition, Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes has been announced. Every year we have done variations on bracket tournaments and creature competitions, and March seems like a appropriate time for some reason that legally we're probably not allowed to hint at, for
some sort of
sports ball.
Monstrous Marchness.
Well, yes. So this year we're looking at doing a Mordenkainen's creature bracket competition. In years past, we've had the community vote on which creature they'd like to advance for various criteria. This year we actually wanted to kind of make it a little bit more dynamic and have the creatures battle each other out at the tabletop. So we're having folks from Wizards of the Coast will be managing one creature. They'll be fighting out it around the table. The winner advances, and just to see how it goes, we're going to live stream it as well. So that will be, I think, Mondays, that last hour of Dragon Talk for about 7 weeks. We're going to be trying the Mordenkainen's creature competition. So you can look for it then as well. It'll also be an opportunity to preview some of the creatures that will be appearing in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes as well. So opportunity there to see some of the content. Dragon Plus, next week our guests will include Dragonfire, Catalyst Games. Catalyst Games will be talking more about Dragonfire, and Beamdog as well. That'll be next week on the Dragon Plus live stream. And the following week, on March 20th, will be our next Dungeons and Doodles episode, where we ask ridiculous questions of our artists and designers. And invariably, they come up with awesome, awesome pictures. And I have no idea how they managed to create those things in 5 minutes or less. But it's always amazing and always good fun. Again, as mentioned, Dragon Plus issue 18 is available now. It's free. It's on iOS. It's on Android. It's online at dragonmag.com. Go back to the archive. You can find Strix's character sheet in issue 17, our holiday gift guide issue. You know, we number the issues, but we don't actually have the issue number on the cover. We need to we need to correct that. Sam Weigelt's behind the screens. You had a column appear back in issue 15 for our board game issue, Party Size Matters. And look for Sam's next article to appear in issue 19, coming out in mid-April. That's one thing I did want to note. We release Dragon Plus every other month. We release it at the end. We had been releasing it near the end of every other month. We're going to start trying to move those dates, creep them up a little bit closer to the top of the month. The reason being, by the time we get to October, we'd like to have the October issue in advance of all things fun and Halloween-y and monsters and all of that. At the end of the month, it's right on the heels. Even more so with the December issue, we like to have a gift guide and holiday crafting, things of that nature. We want to make sure that's well at the beginning of December, so you've got time to actually shop.
Yeah.
As opposed to the end.
No one wants gift ideas on December 28th.
Well, maybe they have gift cards they want to use.
True.
But ideally, yes, we're at the top of the month. We're a little bit closer to the Black Friday, Cyber Monday side of things as well. So look for the Dragon Plus release dates to move earlier and earlier, which puts more and more pressure on our partners at Dialect. Matt Chapman, our editor-in-chief, and Chris Imlay, our wonderful, wonderful designer and layout extraordinaire there. Jason Thompson, this is my interactive component. This is why I brought a D10.
Oh, I was wondering if that was just there by accident.
It was not. Holly, do you have access to a D10?
Yeah,
okay.
I do.
So in this issue, we had Jason Thompson is our esteemed cartoonist. He did the Port Nyanzaru cartoon map. It has not, but it's going to come with a carousing table for all of the events and activities that you might take part of in Port Nyanzaru. This is a greatly expanded table. If you look in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I think it's page 128, there's a small carousing table for between sessions. What players...
Is it actually called a carousing table?
A carousing table. I believe it's yes. I believe it is officially called the carousing table. So there's a small version in Dungeon Master's Guide. In mid-issue for Dragon Plus, so coming out in a couple weeks, we're going to do the Port Nyanzaru carousing table, which Jason Thompson created as well. So if you give me a percentage roll each, I will tell you the example of things that might befall you in Port Nyanzaru.
All right, I got 26.
Oh, you are jailed.
Oh, no!
Yes. Jailed for 1d4 days. Oh, so I guess we need to...
I'll roll a d4. I'll see how many days I'm jailed.
In Fort Nyanzaru on charges of disorderly conduct and disturbing the peace. However, you can pay a fine of 20 gold pieces to avoid jail time.
No, I don't have any gold because Strix doesn't know what money is, so I got 3 days in jail.
For disorderly conduct, too.
Yeah, what happened?
That's pretty steep for disorderly conduct, 3 days.
Port Nyanzaru, it's a crazy, it's a port town. Who knows?
I feel like Strix could easily whip up some disorderly conduct.
I would agree.
And I rolled an 80.
An 80. Oh, Sam, your character is caught in a whirlwind romance.
Whoa.
Sounds about right.
Let's see.
Saucy.
I neglected to bring in a D20 on a 1 to 5. Oh, ah!
Oh, as if by magic.
Yeah, thank you to Pelham. Bring in the D20.
Is this to see how this relationship ends?
We're going to see how it ends.
Oh, good.
A 2. I have a feeling it didn't end well.
It ends badly. It ends horribly badly. So for anyone else watching The Bachelor these days, which I am, they also rolled a 2 on... It did not end well. So we'll see how that concludes tonight. So
I've actually, that's another show on my list for research.
You know, I don't know how it might play into a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, but we'll take suggestions for that as well.
Good.
Again, for folks tuning in, as always, thank you so much for watching the D&D channel and the Dragon Plus live stream. Thank you so much to our followers and our subscribers as well. If you don't follow or subscribe, please consider doing so. We will be back at 3:30. Greg Tito, as always, will be taking on the D&D news, followed at 4 p.m. Pacific by Dice Camera Action. DM Chris Perkins, but including such wonderful players as Holly Conrad.
Yay!
DMing. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to
I was going to say, come watch us die.
It's a pretty good tagline for the live stream game, actually. Of course, Holly will be DMing her own live stream, Trapped in the Birdcage, Thursdays, 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific on the D&D channel as well. I think this is going to be our third week of Trapped in the Birdcage this Thursday, so we're very excited.
Have our first guest surprise. I will tell you who it is. It's going to be my husband, Ross O'Donovan, who is a internet clown, and he is going to make everyone's life terrible, and he's going to be playing an ooze method.
Small trivia, the only thing my child is scared of, clowns. So.
I thought you were going to say ooze methods.
Oh, he'd be okay with an ooze method, but the clown, no, not happening.
Not a real clown, just, that's how I describe my job to potential employers. I'm just like, I'm an internet clown, that's what I do as a job, that's my job.
Thank you to Sam, and thank you to Holly for coming on and wasting an hour of your days being on the Dragon Plus live stream. But I appreciate it. I hope the viewers appreciate it as well.
And it was nice meeting you, Sam.
Oh, and you too, Holly. This was an hour well wasted.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you both.
All right. Again, thank you, everyone. And stay tuned for D&D News coming on in half an hour. And be sure to tune in to Trapped in the Birdcage on Thursdays. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And I promise next time I will actually field the questions in the chat stream. I am remiss, and I do apologize for folks watching, but next time we'll get some questions.
I'm sorry, it was all my giggle fits. Because I'm laughing too much.
Giggle Fits the Clown is a...
Oh, God,
Giggle
stop!
Fits the Clown.
Good.
Ooze
Now
method.
I'm scared.
Yeah.
Entertainer extraordinaire.
We've got a great name for the use method.
I'm frightened.
So Pelham should cut us off before we keep going.